Most people think Albania is all beaches and cheap cost of living, but no one talks about the young men in Albania who are under immense amount of pressure.
Not only do I see the pressure in the men from Albania, but when I start talking to them, I can feel a certain energy from them. In the beginning, it always seems to be a bit defensive, but as soon as they realize I want to understand the story behind all of their struggles, this, you know, why do I feel and why do I see Albanian men look like grown ass men and they're like 17 years old? So, if you can tell me in your very own words through your experiences, what pressure do Albanian men feel today that people don't talk about?
Firstly, most of the Albanian men come from families which are old-minded here in Albania, and which by that they from very young age, especially when they are like the only men of when they are 3, 4 children, for example, and he is the only man out of those children. He has the uh, burden, I can say, or like the heavy weight of keeping his family back, because when he gets older, his parents gonna be gonna get provided by him, you know. So he is gonna provide for his parents. He's gonna take responsibility for his sisters, his other brother if he has a older or younger brother. This all comes with lots of pressure and lots of stress, of course. And when some people don't do that but live in a small town, when they all got this kind of mentality, they start pressuring him like, "Oh, you are the bad son. You are not a worthy son. Why did you let your parents?" They might have been the worst parents there, but they still pressure him. You are the worst son. And when you start doing it some of the time, most of the parents, when you go to a certain age, for example, when their son goes like 20 years old, 22, and starts working, they gradually start letting go of their work. And they're like, "Oh, he's gonna keep us now, you know, he's gonna provide for us now." And this is an extra burden, an extra stress into Albanian men. They have to stress the fuck out, like they have to stress quite a lot, especially for keeping themselves alive, but also they have to keep their parents and their family also alive. And we got a really strong tradition in here, which is slowly fading actually year by year, because also parents are understanding that days are becoming much harder and the inflation is getting really, really high, which this takes men and even young women, but men mostly, that are supposed to provide, in much harder position than it was like 20 years ago. Because 20 years ago, if I live in a small town, or even here in Tirana, where people had their own homes before it becoming like a place for students and tourists, etc., etc., they could live off by 300 euros, 500 euros a month. They could live quite a normal life. Maybe not the best life, but quite a normal life. 1,000 euro, you should have been called very rich by that time. But nowadays, as you have seen recently, the prices are really high and the inflation is going far more higher, and 1,000 euros is nothing here. You can just live, like go past every month, just pay the rent, eat some stuff, but not actually enjoy your life, or at least buy some decent stuff. You are just one sickness far from going broke, technically. And that is a problem which most of the Albanian men have to also think about it, so they have to do double shifts or have to do lots of work and stress out a lot. They don't talk it a lot because most of them just say like, "It's nothing, we're used, this is our tradition." Of course we are going to take care of our family. That thing is known, but no one takes some time to actually talk about how do they feel about this, or how much do they stress about it, and how sickening is for the mind that. And that makes the Albanian man mostly. And nowadays, as I said, uh, it's not that harsh as it was for my parents or their parents, but it's still there, still existing, and it's causing lots of youngsters to look much older because they are stressing out all the day, and they start working since young age, because uh, they tend to hide it from this, like, I'm working since 16 because I want those money for myself, to buy stuff for myself. But technically you are helping your parents because they don't have the money to buy you stuff, you know?
Yeah.
Even though you are covering it in a part like, okay, I got them all for yourself. You got them all for yourself, but you are still helping them because they are not paying you for a coffee you're gonna get out, or your hangouts with friends, or the clothing that you are going to buy, you know? And technically you are still helping them. You are still stressing with yourself because you are like, oh, I need to work because I don't have money in my pockets.
Yeah.
I cannot ask my parents because they don't have. And that takes them to keep stressing about work and about life and men here when they are 20 years old, 22 years old, start stressing like people out in Europe that are 40 years old, 42, 50 years old for stuff that they start thinking after 30 years old. For example, buying a house and stuff like that. We start thinking it quite early because firstly the first thing they tell us is like, be good enough to buy a house for yourself or to build yourself a house. And then since when we are young, we're like, okay, we need to buy a house, we need to get married, for example, we need to make money, we need to keep our parents, we need to help our sisters if they are not married, even if they are married, if they have problems, we need to help them, which is, of course, it's something that everyone does it. But here is kind of a extra pressure about the thing, which adds up to all these normal stresses from life and work and school and everything, and comes by to that thing that you told me that they are 17 years old Albanians, 18 years old, 16 years old, they look like 22, 23, or even 20 years old, they look like 28, 30. And that takes it to that part, you know?
Fast forward today to what I would say more of a modern day era, given the not only the economy but with technology accelerating things. Would you say that the newer Albania, do you think that men are probably happier than they were back then, or are they just as lost?
For some, look, for some directions of life, they are actually happier because most of them don't have some type of pressures that they used to have much more back then, or even the pressure of getting a job. For example, before that was students, for example, was really hard to even get a job as a waiter or as a salesperson at a shop that sells clothings because they wanted it full time. And they couldn't go full time because either they're going to school or either they're going to work, you know. And that's another problem with it. But nowadays some stuff are much easier. We cannot say the opposite because now students can find jobs, even part-time jobs are not that much popular but still can get, you know. So the rates of getting a job now it's higher than before, because before they used to ask for some really weird stuff to even go to simple jobs that anyone can do or can learn in 1, 2, or 3 days, like being a bartender. You can learn it in 3 days, maximum 1 week of training. You can be a bartender really, really easy. But before, some of them they just didn't take you there because you were a student. But nowadays they take students, they teach them, but it's also the opposite because it's being hard even to get. I know I'm being like paradoxal with what I'm saying, and I am going against myself with this that I'm going to say now, but it's the two sides of the knife technically, and they are both cutting, because it's the other side that is easier somehow, but it's also harder because they want with more experience, and there are much more other people, lots of other people that want to get the same job as you. And when you go apply for that job, it's you and 100 others, for example. And for such small place like Albania, having such high density of applicants for a specific job, it's quite a killing thing for people that want to get a job. Okay, that one person that gets it, he's cool because he got it. But all the 99 others, they are gonna be jobless until they find something.
Yes.
Yeah, and which is quite of a problem, and it's not really good calculated in here. Of course, the other problem is also for the working in a profession, because what I said now was first part was only for the typical professions, like then we call it random professions in here, like waiters, bartenders, etc., that you can learn, that you don't need a school technically to learn. Of course, when you become a professional one, you need a school and certifications, etc., to work in nice hotels and doing the serving even better and even good. But I'm just saying in the local shops level, local coffee shops level. If you go further and try, you start studying and want to get a job or anything like that, the market is really, really bad, job market.
Okay.
Which takes students to start applying for 4 months, 6 months straight and not find anything, even for a year. Because most of them don't want the beginners, like the entry levels, the postgraduate or not yet graduated but are at the final year. They don't want them. They want already trained employees and experienced employees. At least in my experience, what I've seen, most of the roles that are available here in Albania, uh, at least in the IT uh, field, in the IT and fintech and those kind of stuff, they all want it with 3+ years. Like maybe I got that experience, but someone else who do not have that experience finds it really difficult to land a job or at least land an internship because they don't even do internships.
So it sounds just really quick about the educational part and the job market. It sounds like your average Albanian, when they graduate from college, they were trying to balance family, they're trying to balance their part-time job, and they're trying to balance them being a full-time student. And so by the time they finally graduate from college, let's say with a bachelor's, which I want to say maybe 4 years of college, more or
It's
less.
3 years of bachelor's and 2 years of master's if you want. But depending on the profession you are choosing, for example, if you are going for studying foreign languages, English and Italian, because it's one lecture technically, English Italian is called studies. You need to also finish the master's so you can find a job as a teacher or as a translator somewhere.
So from all the pressure that starts from your childhood, that follows you into your adulthood, it's for me it's such a huge mystery, and I also find it extremely challenging when I learn bits and pieces of it. As far as, if you have an older brother, then you have a role model. If you have an older brother, you have someone that's going to supplement the family household income, and so that then that brother basically sets the benchmark for the younger brother or the younger sibling to say, hey, you're going to have to eventually contribute to the family household as well. So it sounds like families, they really, in the way they're united because they struggle together and they stick together during the hard times. Now, is there also pressure when you get to a certain age, maybe your mid-20s, where your family thinks that maybe you should acquire your own place one day, or is it more like you yourself would finally like to break away from the family tree and do your own thing and be independent?
It's a combination of both too. But I think it all comes to that part because of all the years the family tells you like you need to buy your own stuff. They technically program you on that way that you start thinking that I need to buy a house. You can live off rent your entire life, you know? But they keep putting it in your mind. You need to buy a house. You need to buy a house. You need to buy a house. And somehow, when you're just get used of that idea, and you start thinking, okay, I'm gonna get to a certain age. I'm gonna take a mortgage probably, or if possible, take the money, work hard, save all the money, and pay house directly or buy it with mortgage. And then starts the other part, like when you're not married, go find someone to go marry, and then start this part. And when you find someone and have some time with it, maybe you don't want to be with children, or you're not feeling ready yet. And then you just go back to your town or at your home, to your own neighborhood, and they're starting, oh, come on, do a child, like they're gonna raise your child, you know? But they don't think, they have a saying like it needs an entire village to raise to raise a child, but they are not the entire village that you can find technically, because they are nowhere there. Because most of the Albanians in here got not much opportunities back in their cities or even here in Tirana, and they try to move out of Albania just to find some better stuff, better hopes. Like you can be a couple, both working, both earning good money, and you still need lots of time. Firstly, to save up that first amount of money to buy a house, like the 20% down payment. Firstly, that is the hardest part that you need to do, because as I said here, even if you are both working couple, you still got lots of stuff to pay, and it's really hard to save up money to actually someday make up that amount and buy that house that you want.
Let's dive into that strategy right now at your age. How old are you?
I'm 22.
22. So people that are anywhere from 22 to maybe 27, 28 years old, would you say that both men and women can get more out of this lifestyle and more out of their life by teaming up and finding someone at an early age that can work with you and partner on this life journey? Or would you say that as an Albanian man, you rather feel like I rather suffer and struggle by myself before I even consider finding myself a woman that I can basically call a fiance, because I feel like I don't have my stability, my financial access to, like you said, buying a home or even renting. What would you say would be your thoughts as an individual as far as, am I going to get through these first few years of my life in my 20s just working my ass off and climbing the ladder? Or are you more thinking it would be nice to experience love in a relationship and also build with that person together?
So, if you are asking for my personal opinion, in my personal opinion, I just want to feel that love and start building with that person and end up in a position where both of us are like strong, independent persons, you know? And we build our thing and we start opening a business or anything, you know, even if she doesn't work. But only the fact that I got someone who technically gives me power, like pushes me. I feel down, some tells me, okay, we can go, we can do it. That is really important for a man. Most of them say like, I'm really strong, I can do it, but they end up depressed at 26, 25 just because of this. Because they overpush themselves. They don't understand the idea of taking a step back. Because they think that's what my dad has done, but then when they see that their dad is just a miserable man that doesn't even love his family anymore, or it's that much tired that all his bonds, he must love his family a lot, maybe. Maybe he loves it a lot, gives his heart out and everything, but he has come to a point when he can't even stand properly because his legs hurt, his back hurt, his arms hurt, all because of that burden that he needs to keep his family, he needs to work hard to buy that house, he needs to work hard to build that house, he needs to provide everything, he needs, like, it's a really hard job to do. There's something that when you're young you do not understand it until you come up at a point when your parents start getting old and you start thinking, okay, they are getting old. They are not even secure. Like most of the Albanians don't have a good pension. I don't know, pension you call it? Yeah, they don't have a good pension because they have worked back normal jobs when they were when the dictatorship was, and they were like just kind of like farm guys or some simple jobs. And when they come up to the time when they need to get to pension, they take like 150 euros, 200 euros, 250, 300 and most. Only the ones that get better pensions are the ex-policemen or not the government, the military guys, that they get like 700 euros, 800 probably, depending on the grade, goes up more. But the normal ex-military or ex-police, they get like 700, which is a good pension for Albania, but still. And most of the Albanian youngsters start thinking about that too, because they're saying, okay, my parents are getting old. They have worked their entire life. Their health is not good because they have overworked their entire life, overstressed their entire life. And that takes them to a point where even this youngster starts overstressing because he's thinking, okay, I got to build stuff for myself. I got to get care of myself, of my family, but I also got to take care of my parents. Also, have to send them money back because they don't feel well. If they get sick, I need to pay all of their operation. For example, if they need to get cut, to get saved, you need to pay that because they don't have any insurance.
That's a great topic that I want to discuss.
Because most of them don't actually believe in that thing, like insuring yourself
the
or
retirement and all that stuff.
yeah. And when they work without
A vision. They just work
no,
to pay the
when
bills.
they work to someone, they prefer taking more money but not get paid the insurance policies.
Like
you know?
the 401k, the retirement plan kind of thing?
Yeah, that is supposedly supposed to be paid by your boss. When they pay your paycheck, they supposed to give you
Contribute to your
contributes.
retirement
Yeah,
plan.
contributes.
Okay.
Yeah, but they prefer not taking their money, or they just don't know about it and just take the money, and their bosses pay the very minimal one.
Yeah.
Like they get paid 1,000 euros a month, for example. I'm taking, and their boss just puts on the bank like half of that amount, so he pays the very minimum, or they gives all the money cash and only pays the very minimum, like 90 euros, 120 euros, something like that, contributions.
It sounds like people in their 20s, 30s, and even 40s are going to have to not only pull their own weight, but also plan futuristically to have enough income to support their parents, because their parents, like you said, were working under an operation where it was just work and not thinking of the future, just trying to keep up with the bills, the rent, and the food, and the family.
Yep.
So now that you have this immense weight on you, you have a lot on your plate. You mentioned that a lot of the workforce out here for young professionals like yourself, they're looking for people with 3 years of experience in that field
And more.
and more.
Is the lowest bar.
But then
2
you
years,
also
3.
mentioned about something about sending money to your parents in Albania. Can you expand on that philosophy and maybe introduce me to the concept that I might be missing?
Me myself, my parents are quite cultured about that, and they understand the fact that me and my fiance are building a future, and they don't want us to drag us back, because we already got lots of our plate, lots of problems, lots of things to stress about, to pay about, and they try not to stress out about this stuff. They keep working themselves. My father kept working somewhere. My mother is a housewife, but my father just keeps working. That money that they get for that city where they live, they got their own house, so they can actually pay their bills there and eat normally without
Sustain.
eating good, without restraining themselves any money, because that's the place where they are. They don't need lots of money to. And also my father has his own business where when he has some work to do, time to times, he has it like, he works night shifts, and then on the afternoons he just does his work when he has, you know? And yeah, that's how they deal it. But usually, as I told you, there are at least the generations that are a bit older than me, because nowadays my generation, their parents have starting to understand what mental health is and starting to see actually what kind of problems comes from that, and they don't want their children to die from stress or kill themselves or any kind of situation like that, or end up in the psychiatric hospital. And they try to provide as much as possible, or at least not to be a burden. But it's only the other side of the coin, where there are parents of older generations than me, that when their children started working like 18, 19, 20 years old, 22, 25, they just quit job. They just quit their job, and they're like, okay, now my kid is going to provide for me because I provided for him all of these years. Mm-hmm. But that's not a fair way to pay back, you know? Because it was his duty as a parent, or her duty as a parent, you know? Okay. And I can pay back him or her when I become a parent myself. I provide for my children. That's how I pay back him. At least that's how I think about this part. Isn't that I'm saying that if they are bad, I'm not gonna help them. But the philosophy on itself about this, it's not the right way to say, like, you have to morally do it just because someone is gonna say he's not gonna help them.
I get your
point.
point.
You do it because you feel it. I feel to help my parents. When they are sick, I go help them. Or when they need money, when I have money, I give them. Because of course, if I have 3 children, for example, and I got only 100 euros left, and my parents ask me for 100 euros, I'm either gonna take a loan from my friend to give them, to help them, or I'm not gonna give my very last money because I got 3 children to take care of, you know?
I think
this is what they expect from their children.
Right. And the way I'm listening and the way I'm interpreting things is, if you were in a financial position in which you were very stable, it sounds like you wouldn't think about it twice, but also inherit some of your family's responsibilities. But the fact that you're struggling out here in this economy and also having a difficult time in the workforce, and you have a fiance, and you have this idea of a future with your fiance, possibly having your own family, in your mind, you're thinking, right now my sources are limited, so I do want to focus on my immediate family. But if I have to, I will help my mom and dad. But fact is, if you were in a position in which the career that you're going for right now was paying you, your fiance had a decent job, that would mean that there's enough to go around.
Yes.
And right now, from what I feel and your expression is that we're lacking right now in Albania for resources, for
Yes.
money, and people in your generation right now are struggling. Do you think that the struggle is both the same for men and women around your age?
Yes, yes. These days it's true. It's because firstly they still exist some prototypes, I can say, of parents that they don't want their daughter to go to school,
Still, to this
to
day.
go to, yes, to go to the university. They say like, why do you need university? Just go work there as a random worker, or just marry to someone and your life is fulfilled. If he lets you to do the university, the most disgusting line to say is if your husband lets you to do the university. It's not your husband's job. It's your job as a parent. It's not her husband's. Your job as a parent is up until she finishes the college. It's your job to pay for her college. There are parents that have taken loans to just help their kids because they don't want them to be like under their partner. Don't want to be treated like, yo, you don't go to school, you don't provide money, just do what I say. Because that's the worst thing you can do to a daughter, to your daughter.
Let's say your cards were different, and at this young age, let's say you were a successful business owner. Let's say your business allows you to live comfortably and maybe earn upwards of 1,200 euros a month take home, right? And then you actually ended up having a baby, right? When your baby starts getting older, you being a successful businessman, would you say college is not a big deal? It's not a priority. You can start your own business, or would you be the traditional parent and say, no, you need to go to college? What would be your philosophy then?
My philosophy is like different from most of the Albanians because, as I've told you before, like university wasn't something that I wanted really. The university that I've done, I went there only to do connections, to know people, of course, to learn one or two stuff, but only the stuff that were in my interest, But wasn't the most important thing because I've started working since I was in the second year. I started working in profession. And I've been working also in other studies profession, like guys that have studied IT, computer science, business informatics. I have went to the interview with those same people and I have taken their job. Mm-hmm. So technically, if there was only a matter of university, I wouldn't have been where I am. Yeah. In this kind of profession where I am, if it was only for university. I wouldn't even have the job if it was for university because I didn't have the best grades. I was like barely passing the university because I didn't want to. I was just doing enough just to pass, or if I was feeling generous with myself someday, would study a bit more just to get some good grade for my own ego. Mm-hmm. And this takes me to the part when if my child tomorrow, when I have my child one day, and he's gonna come up to me, yo, Dad, give me an advice. Do I need to do college? Or I'm gonna be like, do you want to do college? Or do you feel like you want to open a business? Or do you feel like you want to work somewhere, learn some skills that you want or something that you like, and then you start doing something yours or work forever in a 9-to-5 job? He says to me, for example, I want to open a business. Okay, you said that I'm gonna be a business owner, for example. Okay, you want to open a business? I'm gonna give you this much money, but I'm gonna give you as a loan. You're gonna say, what kind of parent are you? No, I'm not gonna give it as a loan because I want to rip off my child. I'm gonna give it as a loan so he understands that firstly the consequences of things that he does, and firstly he understands also how money works. He's gonna have his family, He's going to have his children. How is he going to provide, you know? Even though you can say he can have his wife, she's going to work, but still it's not the same. The wife working, only the wife working, and it's not the same only the men working, because us as men have more like energy, technically power or willpower to work 16 hours a day, 18 hours a day, 20 hours a day just to provide for family. A woman gets tired much faster than us when it comes to work, and doesn't have that mentality of actually going through struggles or doing everything possible just to provide. That's one thing that I want to learn to him or her, you know? That's one of the main things that I think that should learn, because that's what makes you do good firstly in life and makes you understand everything that's going on and makes you a sharp mind.
I just realized your answer uncovered something very. So I heard you, and what I just realized, your answer is so interesting because you basically said you have wealth and you have freedom. Those go hand in hand.
Yeah.
And what you are offering your child and your future, you notice that it's the completely opposite of your situation. So basically, growing up, your parents weren't wealthy. Because they weren't wealthy, you didn't have the freedom to do what you felt like doing.
Yeah.
So now, as an adult, you want the complete opposite for your child. And in a sense, you want to relive their childhood the way you wished you would have had the opportunity to do what maybe interests you versus going to do something that you freaking hate doing.
No, it's more about the part that I don't want them to live my dream. You know? Because if they were going to live my dream, I was going to say like, do this, do that, don't go to this school. I want them to live their dream, to live their life how they want it, not how I want it. If they fail it, okay, everyone fails. I failed, you have failed, everyone have failed. But if you give him or her the opportunity to actually try something that they like, maybe they end up very successful in that. Maybe they become very great artists, very great musicians, guitarist, I don't know, pianist, someone that plays the piano, whatever they want, or pilot, plane pilot, or military guy, whatever. But maybe they become really successful in that and start actually having a good life for themselves. Because I don't want any return back from them. I just want, when I get old, just to take them to be like, yo, pops, wanna come drink a coffee with me? Yo, pops, you wanna come eat something with me?
Yeah.
You know, I don't want them to give me money, because I'm working myself to be able, when I am old enough to be on retirement, to not have the need for someone to lend something to me.
Yeah.
I just want them to live their life, to actually do what they like and what they enjoy, and to form themselves. I don't want them to be some kind of continuing of my dream or continuing of my personality or my character traits.
So right now, today, if you can press a button and you can make a change in the entire country, just one change, if you can press that button, what change would that be today?
What change? Probably it would be the politicians first. That would be, but also some of the people in here, like not to change their mentality, because they are very harsh towards their own ethnicity, technically. When it comes to tourists, they are much different. Or when it comes to youngsters, they try to act cool and blend in. But deep down, they judge a lot the other people. And that's a problem, because it makes them enemies of their own kind, of their own people, of their own family, and makes them quite a great enemy and a hater.
So if you can press that button, if I'm understanding you correctly, you would diminish, get rid of harsh judgment?
Yeah, harsh judgments.
Nice.
And corrupted politicians, which have been dragging down this country for years, for quite many years they are trying to depopularize the Albanians because youngsters don't want to live from here. But they live because they don't got the opportunity to actually have a good life, or especially in this day, in the last 12 or 16 years that our current prime minister is here.
But it sounds like, and so the reason I only gave you one button is because that one core thing is the most important to you, right? And now that I get to retrospect and listen to your story and your perspective, it makes sense because if you remove judgment from society here in Albania, then that gives you the freedom to take more risk, be more yourself, and leave that comfort zone into something that's unknown and could be extremely rewarding. So when I heard you talk about your future family and talk about your child, that's exactly what you're doing. You're allowing him to be a person, then become a teenager, and then be an adult with very little judgment.
Yeah, to take all stages of his life or her life very lightly, but also to live their entire life, not go from child to adult or from, I don't know, from teenager to adult in very short time, but to live through all those years. When you start being called a teenager, for example, 12, 13 years old, I'm not pretty sure, until you are 18, to live like that. Not to be a teenager from 12 to 13 or 14 and then have to start working and start to act like you are older, and to act like a type way of saying like a thug or like a gangster, just to be blend in and not be left out, and to be called like, if you study well and they call you his studies, why disgusting his studies. And that's one of the things that I think about, like, just wants to enjoy every part of his life, his childhood, his teen years, his adulthood, his years when he's going to get old, and maybe God wants to make him or her have provided for themselves quite enough to live a comfortable late years.
Yeah. The last thing is for foreigners that come into Albania, what's one thing you can share with them that they probably don't understand?
Firstly, don't buy houses from agencies because they tend to overload in prices. There can be a house, for example, like this where we are right now, that if there wasn't for the agencies that sell it in really high prices or bloat the prices without needing for the rents and everything, could have been much cheaper. Wouldn't have been sold for 100k euros, but for 70k or 60k, because it's not quite of a big space, and and they call it as a artificial way of growing GDP. The outside money, when they come here and invest, is a way of artificially growing
Inflating
the
the
GDP,
numbers in a
inflating
way.
the numbers artificially. That's what we call it, at least what I've studied, is artificial number inflation, GDP inflation, which means the Albanians themselves are still poor in a way. Most of them live in poverty. Some of them even in extreme poverty. And only 1 or 2% that has the power and the money, they do this kind of trick, I can say, where they overinvest in here, start building towers, buildings like these ones where we are, and start selling them to foreigners, to Europeans, to Jews, to Americans for very high prices, and they are all called investments technically for Albanians, and it's money that is coming to the state. And it's like, as I said, this artificial GDP inflation.
So then that's a good recommendation and that's good to share. What would be the alternative or what would be the wiser route to take? You
Actually,
mentioned,
there is not much of fault from tourists about that, because for them houses are cheaper here. You can buy this house in America is probably like 300k, 400k. I'm not pretty sure, but what I've seen around and what I've read, it's probably that price. And here you can buy it for 100k, and you're like, okay, 200k saved or 300k saved.
so if we can spread this message at a global level, and basically it's kind of in our power as foreigners to support those numbers
yeah.
or say, no, we're going to have to
Yeah.
negotiate those
We
numbers.
have to negotiate, but
yeah.
also the idea is the first off, there should be like a ground price and the
Premium.
premium price, depending also for the places, but also should be calculated based of the minimum wage of the Albanians.
Of the country, yeah.
Yeah, because that's how European countries have. Italy, for example, has it based on the, of course, for premium locations, of course, it's, but there are also places for everyone. Even the guy that takes the minimum wage can pay his rent or can pay his mortgage, can eat, can buy stuff to wear. Yeah, in Italy, I'm talking. But here, someone with minimum wage cannot even pay rent nowadays.
Yeah.
Because minimum wage is 450, I think, or 500. The rent nowadays, it's minimum you can find for 101, one bedroom, one sleeping room, one bedroom. Could be like 300, that is totally ruined, really old house. And for new houses, could be like 380, 400, 450, 500.
And we're
Which
getting
is-
to the United States prices now.
Which is quite a lot.
Yeah.
And when you pay 400 a month and your monthly income is 500 a month, that 100 it's only paying electricity, paying water, and having like 50 euros at most to eat, which is a shame. They calculated like, oh, okay, most of the Albanians have their own houses, but nowadays none of them have houses. Even back in my city and other cities, people do not have their houses anymore because they are technically forced to go somewhere else to work because there is nothing to work there,
Yeah.
or not enough money to provide for the family there.
It's
Only
happening-
old couples can live there, on someone who is young and is by himself and just gets enough money just for himself to drink his coffee, to buy himself a shirt, and that's all. It's not much of opportunities, especially for the new generation.
It's tough because this is happening at a global level, where back then someone that worked as a cashier at a gas station can work 40 hours a week and still afford to buy a home for the family. This was like in the 80s, 70s. But I really truly don't understand exactly why there's continuously greed and how we can overthrow those people at the very top that are basically setting up the rules.
You cannot.
And it's this the part that's makes me sick, because you would think, okay, I'm going to a different country, things are going to be a little better, and then quickly you'll start seeing the corruption, quickly you'll start seeing the struggle. And it's sad, brother, but I want to thank you for being transparent and sharing your insights, your hardships, and also your vision, which I think it's a well balanced vision, and it counteracts the past, the history, and hopefully people like you would actually continue moving forward and become activists and become evangelists of these of these, and we can start seeing small changes for the best.
That's, I think, hopefully one day, but I think it's quite far. Especially the part that you are saying, overthrowing the one that control you, cannot just overthrow them. When they got enough power to finance wars and to finance the governments themselves, you and me are nothing compared to them. You and me and millions like us. So it's like a dead-end game. We just have to work for ourselves and manage to pull the strings where needed.
Yes, sir.
To get up and just at least be better than the other part, so you can, for yourself and for your family, can live good.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that it's on your hand.
Right on. All right, brother. Thank you so much.
Thank you too.